One of the key ideas in economics is that economic goods and services are scarce or limited in availabilities. Nations and societies need to reach a consensus on how to allocate goods and services within themselves. Since goods and services are scarce, individuals and societies need to decide what trade-offs will need to take place when allocating goods and services. A trade-off occurs when an individual or society gives something up to get more of something else. The idea of trade-off is best summarized in the old saying, "There is no such thing as a free lunch," or "you can't get something for nothing." Trade-offs involve two concepts, costs and benefits. A cost is something that is given up by the economic agent. A benefit is something gained by the economic agent. Let's look at an example. Oksana has $750. She can spend the money or attend classes at a community college to study programming. Classes are 3 credits and cost $150 per class. What are the possibilities for Oksana and her $750? The questions we need to ask is, if Oksana does not take any classes, how much does she have left over to spend on other things? If Oksana decides to spend all the money in class, how much does she have left over to spend on other things? And finally, what are the possibilities if she decides to spend neither all the money in classes nor decides to take any classes? Let's look at her possibilities. The table shows the possibility for Oksana, who has $750 to spend either on classes or on other things. If Oksana takes no credits at a community college, she'll have $750 left over to spend. If Oksana takes 3 credits at a community college, she will have $600 to spend on other things. If Oksana takes 6 credits at a community college, she will have $450 to spend on other things. If Oksana takes 9 credits at a community college, she will have $300 to spend on other things. If she takes 12 credits at a community college, she'll have $150 to spend. If Oksana takes 15 credits at a community college, she will have no money to spend on other things. The point is that this table makes it clear that Oksana must trade off between having money to spend on other things and having money to spend on community college. Oksana's choices can be illustrated pictorially using a graph. The graph has 2 lines or axes. The horizontal line or axis represents the amount of community college credits Oksana could potentially take during a given term. The vertical axis represents the amount of money Oksana has to spend on other things. So if Oksana takes 0 credits, she'll have $750 to spend on other things. So if Oksana takes 3 credits, she'll have $600 to spend on other things. If Oksana takes 6 credits, she'll have $450 to spend on other things. If Oksana takes 9 credits, she'll have $300 to spend on other things. If Oksana takes 12 credits, she'll have $150 to spend on other things. If Oksana takes 15 credits, she will have $0 to spend on other things. Once again, the key of this graph is that Oksana is forced to trade off having money to spend on other things and having the ability to take classes. Let's look at another example of trade-offs by analyzing the situation of Joe. One day has 24 hours in it. Joe needs 8 hours of sleep and needs an additional 4 hours for eating and other personal hygiene activities. Joe would like to work and train for a job as an X-ray technician at a community college. The maximum amount of time that Joe has for either studying or working is 12 hours. Here's a table that summarizes Joe's possibilities. Let's take a minute and look at the different combinations. Joe could study 0 hours and work 12. He could study for 2 hours and work 10. Joe could study for 4 hours and work 8 hours. Joe could study for 6 hours and work 6 hours. Joe could study for 8 hours and work for 4 hours. Joe could study for 10 hours and work 2 hours. Finally, Joe could study for 12 hours and work no hours. Once again, the key point is that Joe is forced to make a choice between studying and working, trading work time for study time. Let's look and see how this might look as a graph. The graph has 2 lines or axes. A horizontal line or axis represents the number of hours or the amount of time Joe could potentially spend studying during a given day. The vertical line or axis represents the number of hours or the amount of time Joe could spend working. Let's take a look at the choices in some detail. So if Joe spends 0 hours studying, he could work for 12 hours. If Joe spends 2 hours studying, he will only have 10 hours that he's able to work. If Joe spends 4 hours studying, he will only be able to work 8 hours. If Joe studies for 6 hours at a community college, then he is able to work 8 hours. If Joe studies at a community college for 8 hours, he will have only 4 hours of working time. If Joe studies for 10 hours, he will have only 2 hours of working time. And finally, if Joe studies for 12 hours, he will have no hours of working time. Once again, the graph shows pictorially that Joe is forced to trade off one activity for another. Let's look at something called the production possibilities curve. The production possibilities curve is a graphical or pictorial representation of the trade-off between two things given a particular amount of resources and level of technology. Notice the phrase, given a particular amount of resources and level of technology. It tells us that the graph is only true if the individual or firm is not allowed to have more resources or better technology. Take a minute and think back to Oksana and Joe. If Oksana had $900 instead of $750, then she could take more credits at a community college and have more money to spend. Similarly, if Joe needed only 2 hours for eating and personal hygiene needs, then he could do more studying and work more hours. Let's look and see some examples of production possibilities curves. Here's an example of a production possibilities curve. But wait a minute, you say, isn't that the graph of Oksana's choices between having money to spend for courses at a community college and having money to spend on other things? Yes, indeed, it is the same graph because the graph we created was a production possibilities curve for Oksana. Similarly, Joe's graph showing the trade-off between studying and working is a production possibilities curve because it too shows the trade-off between studying and working. Most economic textbooks present a graph that looks like something like the graph on the screen. The graph represents the choices a national government might make between spending on education and spending on the military. There are a few things to notice about the graph. First, the horizontal line or axis represents spending on education. The vertical line or axis represents spending on the military or defense spending. One thing about the graph that makes many students nervous is the absence of number on either the horizontal axis or line or the vertical axis or line. This is a very typical situation in economics because the economists want their viewer to focus on the big picture and not get bogged down on the details of the numbers. The economist assumes that the viewers know that as one moves from left to right, the number increases in value. So, point B is larger or greater than point A. A similar assumption is made for the vertical axis or line, where the numbers increase as one moves up the vertical line. So, point D is larger or greater than point C on the vertical axis. Let's look at an example of a production possibilities curve. This is an example of an electronics firm which is capable of producing both DVD players and computers. Another important thing to understand about the production possibilities curve is the time dimension. In the world of economics, there are two time periods, the short run and the long run. The long run means that all economic variables are fixed and cannot change. For example, in the short run for a firm producing DVDs and computers is the time it takes for the firm to build a new factory, acquire more machines, or develop new manufacturing process. During the period of time the firm is waiting for a new factory or machines, it cannot increase the production of both DVD players and computers. The long run is the time where economic variables are able to change. In the case of the firm producing DVD players and computers, the long run is when the factory opens up a new factory, new machines arrive and are installed in the factory, or when new processes are implemented. The production possibilities curve is a short-run representation of the firm's trade-offs. The production possibility curve has three characteristics. First, it represents the maximum choices that the firm, individual, or company faces. As a result, the production possibilities curve is said to be obtainable, meaning that the choices are actually available to the firm, the individual, or the country. In the case of the electronics firm in the graph, it means the firm can produce the DVD players and computers represented by the line. Second, the production possibilities curve represents efficient use of resources. Efficiency means that no resource used in the production of the good is wasted. In the case of the electronics firm, this means that the firm has hired all the labor it needs to produce its products and uses all the raw materials that are available for producing its products. Nothing used to produce the products is wasted. Third, the production possibilities curve shows that any increase in the production of one good will cause a decrease in the production of another good. In the graph, the electronics firm produces 500 computers and 300 DVD players. If the firm decides to increase the production of DVD players, it will be forced to decrease the production of computers because the firm will need to reallocate resources, workers, and material away from computer production to DVD player production. Any point inside or to the left of the actual production possibilities curve represents a point that is obtainable but does not use resources efficiently. Let's revisit the graph of Oksana and her choices between spending $750 on courses at a community college and spending money on other things. Oksana's choices can be illustrated pictorially using a graph. The graph has two lines or axes. The horizontal line or axis represents the amount of community college credits Oksana could potentially take during a given term. The vertical axis represents the amount of money Oksana has to spend on other things. So if Oksana takes 0 credits, she'll have $750 to spend on other things. So if Oksana takes 3 credits, she'll have $600 to spend on other things. If Oksana takes 6 credits, she'll have $450 to spend on other things. If Oksana takes 9 credits, she'll have $300 to spend on other things. If Oksana takes 12 credits, she will have $150 to spend on other things. Finally, if Oksana takes 15 credits, she will have $0 to spend on other things. Notice in all the cases she has spent all the money. She has no money left over at any of the points. Now suppose that Oksana decides to spend $300 and take 3 credits, which cost $150. This leaves $300 unspent. We designate this point point A. Since she has not used up all the $750, she has not made efficient use of the money she has to spend. She could spend the remaining $300 on classes, which would move her over to 9 credits at the community college. And notice by spending the additional $300 in classes, she is now using the $750 efficiently. She could also spend the remaining $300 on other things, which would move her up to the $600 on the spending on other things. Once again, this moves her back to the production possibilities curve. Another option is that she could take another 3-credit class, which would cost her $150 and bringing her to a total of 6 credits at the community college. She could also use an additional $150 to spend. This would give her a total of $450 to spend. Notice that by taking one more class and having $150 more to spend on other things, Oksana moves onto the production possibilities curve. This shows that point A is inefficient because she was able to have more spending money and take more classes. A similar line of reasoning can be used for the electronics firms. Suppose that our electronics firm is able to produce either a maximum of 550 computers or a maximum of 500 DVD players. However, it decides that it will only produce 100 computers and 100 DVD players. Is the firm producing at its maximum potential? The answer is indeed no, because it has the capability of producing even more. The implication is that it is not hiring the maximum amount of labor it could produce to produce computers or DVDs, or using the machines to their maximum capability, or it may have even closed down factories it owns as well. If the firm increases the amount of labor it employs a little, it would be able to move from a production of 100 units of both products to 200 units of both products. If the firm increased the amount of labor a little bit more, it would increase its production from 200 units of both products to 300 units of both products. If the firm increased the amount of labor employed even more, it would increase the production of both products from 300 units to 400 units. If the firm increased the amount of labor employed even more, it would reach the production possibilities curve, where the firm would employ its resources efficiently. Let's look back at Oksana's production possibilities curve. Remember, Oksana's production possibilities curve represents all the combinations she has between taking classes at a community college and spending money on other things. Remember also that the line represents a total of $750. The question is, what happens if Oksana decides she wants to take 9 credits at the community college and spend $450 on other things? Let's take a minute to look at the graph of the situation where Oksana wants to take 9 credits and wants to have $950 to spend at the same time. Notice that the point B is outside or to the right of the production possibilities curve. The fact that the point is outside or to the right of the production possibilities curve means she cannot reach it because she wants to have more money than she can if she takes 9 credits, or because she wants to take too many credits than she can take when she wants to have 450. Thus, it is impossible for her to reach the point outside or to the right of the production possibilities curve, given that she has $750. In the long term, it is possible that Oksana could move to a higher level. This can only be done if she gets some new resources, that is, say, $900. Let's look and see what happens to Oksana's production possibilities when she has $900 to spend on taking courses and having money to spend on other things. Here is Oksana's new possibilities. Let's take a minute and go through them so that we fully understand the implications of having $900 to spend on credits at a community college and for spending on other things. If Oksana takes 0 credits at the community college, she will have $900 for spending on other things. If she takes 3 credits at a community college, she will have $750 to spend on other things. If she takes 6 credits at a community college, she will have $600 to spend on other things. If she takes 9 credits at a community college, she will have $450 to spend on other things. If she takes 12 credits at the community college, she will have $300 to spend on other things. If she takes 15 credits at a community college, she will have $150 to spend on other things. And if she takes 18 credits at a community college, she will have no money left over to spend on other things. The key point is that when Oksana has $900, she can take more credits at the community college and have more money to spend than she would if she had only $750. Her production possibilities curve has changed. Let's take a look at the production possibility curve for when Oksana has $750 and when she has $900. The red line represents Oksana's production possibilities curve when she has $750, and the blue one represents her production possibilities curve when she has $900 to spend. Notice that the $900 production possibility curve means that at all points she has an opportunity to take more credits and have more money to spend on other things. This is seen as an advance in her ability in her, quote, little economy. The electronics firm, too, will face the same problem as Oksana. Once again, if the electronics firm wishes to produce at the point T, it will need to have to find some way of increasing resources or technology. Once it's increased its resources or improved its technology, the whole curve will shift out, so the firm will be able to produce both more personal computers and DVD players.